Hello there. It is January 17 and it's a very cold day out. We have had several inches of snow over the last few days. I would guess probably around at least 20 inches. And the wind has been blowing, and our wind chill is several degrees below zero. So with all of that into consideration, I thought, what a great day to plant a garden. So here we have a microgreen garden, and I am going to show you some easy, what I find to be really easy steps for growing microgreens. I'll start with the method that I'm using. It's called a self-watering method. You see that self-watering growing trays. This is about, I would say about 4 years ago, I saw these trays on a website, and so what happens is you've got a tray. These are like 4x6, so they're pretty small trays, and they have a few holes, and there are 6 holes, and then there came 3 pieces of wicking cord with this set, and then the bottom tray is just a solid tray. And so what you do is you put some water in the bottom tray, and then this top tray you string the 3 wicking cords through those holes, put your soil in here, and then put your seeds on top of that, and that's the process here. And this worked fine. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't get very much of a yield, and so I decided to see if I could find some kind of trays that would be bigger so that I could plant more seeds. So these I found on Amazon, and since then I've seen them in a lot of places, but these are called sprouting trays, and this size is about a 9x12 approximately. Different brands vary in that, but you want to get the size that is like a 9x12 or a 13x10, in that range, rather than the small ones that are 5x7s, or that's a common size too, but I like to get the bigger size just because so that I can plant more. So what I do with these sprouting trays is that I drilled 4 holes in there. They can be going this direction or this way, didn't make any difference. And then I used some wicking cord. I bought a rope, probably you can get them for like 60 to 90 feet long. And so I got the wicking cord, and I measured it just by stringing it from one end to the other, and that's how I decided how long to cut my cords. So then I would just cut the cord and then cut as many as I needed, all the same size. And that's why in this middle one, it's weaving like that, is just because they're all the same size cords, and that way it makes it easier once you have used them and then wash them to reuse them. You don't have to separate the shorter ones from the longer ones. This is the first step. These trays, you could buy them like 1 or 2 trays in a pack. That's a pretty expensive way. The best prices that I found on Amazon were to get a pack of 5 or 6 trays, and they were anywhere from $15 to $17. The less expensive ones. The 10 packs were usually around $18 to $22, and then I found one brand that was a 16 pack for $24. I like the idea of getting at least 10 of them. That way you can, if you want to plant a couple trays at a time and stagger it out. The growing process is usually about 12 to 14 days. This way you could stagger them out, do 2 or 3 trays, and then 4 days later maybe do another 2 or 3 trays, and that way you would have fresh greens all the time for your meals. And they make really nice gifts. The next step after the stringing those trays is to put your soil in your tray. Well, I will say that you can find these trays where they come with a dome that you can put over the tray, like a 2 or 3 inch clear plastic dome. You don't need that in this process. It wouldn't serve you any purpose. And another feature that I like about the kind of tray, the size that I get, is not only about a 9 by 12 roughly, but I also get one that has the green bottom tray where it's quite shallow. And so these green trays, what I look for are trays that are no more than like 1.5 inches to 1 3/4 deep. And that will have to do with, because then you can use less water in the bottom. But let's look at the soil here. I've been using, the only soil that I've used is the coconut coir. So this is from the husk of the coconut. And it comes, sometimes you just see the name coca coir or something like that, but it's anyway, coconut coir is an easy name to Google to find this. I got this 8.25 pound. It's like a brick. It's really solid condensed husk. I bought this from Walmart. With Walmart, this was about the cheapest price that I found for the coconut soil, and I've been very happy with it. That's all I've used since I've started this process. Like I say, I think I said about 4 years ago. The one from Walmart is $12.50. The only way I've been able to find that is on their website. I haven't seen it in the stores yet, but you can get free shipping if you order $35 worth of products from Walmart. Otherwise, you would want to find another source such as Amazon. Amazon prices were a little bit more. On Amazon, they sold, their largest quantities were 10 or 11 pound bricks. You can buy it in much smaller sizes, but it won't last near as long. I use probably about 3 of these a year, and I'm growing my microgreens regularly, so I'm very satisfied. The soil keeps just fine once I've rehydrated it. But on Amazon, you can get bricks for 10 or 11 pounds. They just do cost a little bit more, but either way you can go with it. Now what you would do with this brick is that, just like on the picture here, it shows putting it, for example, in a wheelbarrow and adding water, and it takes about 4 gallons, maybe 4.25 gallons of water, and then after a few hours it just expands and crumbles, and it's amazing. And so what I do is that I have an 18 quart tote, and I put my brick, I unwrap it and put my brick of soil in there, and then I add my water to it and let it set for a few hours, and it expands almost to the top of this tote, and it doesn't all crumble out fine like this. You do have to break it up with your hands, but it just takes a few minutes. And in my sprouting tray, I put 4 cups. I don't pack it down. I just scoop it up and measure out 4 cups into my sprouting tray. I like to keep this covered so that it'll hold in the moisture. Otherwise it will dry out, which is fine. It'll just require more water in your sprouting tray to get it moistened up again. And let's see what I want to say else about the soil. So I think, yeah, so I've probably, if you were to buy the soil off from Amazon where it was in a 10 or 11 pound brick, you would probably, well, you would need a bigger tote for sure. Now the next step is planting, and I have planted quite a few different seeds. The ones that I typically grow, I have them in a jar here. Typically I've been growing, and I would buy these seeds by the pound or more. And I have in this jar, I have a couple of kinds of cabbage, a couple of kinds of mustard, a broccoli, kohlrabi, arugula. So I have about 7 different seeds, and I measure out for this size of a sprouting tray. Of course, if you do use smaller trays, you'll have to, reduce everything that I'm talking about, the water, the soil, the number of seeds, all of that sort of thing. But I have in my little container here 2 teaspoons of seeds, and so I'm going to set my phone down for a second while I put them in my hand so I can put them on my sprouting tray. Okay, and then you're just going to sprinkle them around here. That's it. The next step is to I just use my tap water, and I put 2 cups of water beneath here. Now you will see that there's a lot of crumbles from the soil that fell through the holes in the sprouting tray. Just knock that out back into your tote. Most of it'll just fall out very easily. So I've put the seeds on here. I put 2 cups of water under here. The reason I use 2 cups is that this soil will absorb that water very quickly. Like within 60 seconds it absorbs as much as it can hold, and because of the wicking cord that's down there. If you put too much more than that, the water will actually come up into the soil, and then it will saturate your soil. It will get your seeds way too wet, and after, eventually they're going to just rot. So you don't want to put too much water in there. You want it to be below your tray with the holes in it. So 2 cups of water works good. And then I use some kind of this is just a flexible cutting board that I cut to the size of my tray. And there, I put this down, and then because the next step is to put some weight on top of these seeds for the germination process. And I'll say a little bit more about that after I show you what I do. These are inexpensive and quite handy. The disposable aluminum baking pans. And then in this I put some weight. And so I have a book here on ancient Rome. And this here book weighs about 3 pounds. And that's a nice amount of weight to put on top of the tray. It just puts pressure on those seeds so that they're into the soil a little bit and they're in good contact with the moisture there so that they can germinate. So a book works fine. I did that for a very long time, probably a year or 2. And then I found some ceramic tile, and that is nice because it's more compact. But you can put your tile, I have it in an extra sprouting tray, or I can put my tile right in here. So something that's going to add weight and fairly evenly distributed, not exactly, but you don't want to just put it here, all your weight. You would want to kind of distribute it around. So I just put that water, my 2 cups of water in the bottom here, and it's the soil within, I would say, like 60 seconds, the soil already absorbed about a cup of that water, and so now the soil is very moist. The seeds will start getting the moisture right away. I put my cover there, and then I put my tray on top, and I'll either, like I said before, put a book, heavy book, or I had those ceramic trays. Now I will have these instructions as well as links to all of these items on a handout, and so whether I got them at Amazon or Walmart, I'll put links of that on a handout. I did want to mention about the wicking cord. The first time I bought wicking cord, it was like 2 cords put together. There was an inner cord, and then there was an outer cord, and so then it made 1 cord, and it worked all right. But once the outer cord started to fray, the inner cord, it just made it hard, because then I had 2 cords that I was trying to keep together to put through the holes in the sprouting tray, and so eventually I just ended up pulling out that inner cord, and I continued to use the wicking cord, and it worked fine. And so if that ends up being what you get, don't worry about it. If it becomes a problem, just pull out that inner cord. But this cord is all one piece, and so I just wet the ends, or the whole thing, it doesn't matter, but I wet the ends, and then it makes it easy to thread through the holes in the sprouting tray. I wanted to mention that the seeds, most of the seeds that I use, I get from True Leaf Market. True Leaf Market is a website. There's a lot of places you can get seeds, but that's one place where they have a big variety. And with my combination of seeds, and one feature that I like about that is because it gives me different colors of stems. The leaves are all green of one shade or another, but the stems can be purple or pink or a cream color, and so that adds, a nice look to it. And I believe I said that it usually takes 12 to 14 days for the growing process from this stage all the way to when they're ready to be harvested. And so these, I have 2 trays here that are ready to be harvested right now, and I get usually about 6 to 8 loosely packed cups of greens from one tray. And I'll show you, while we're standing here, I want to show you these roots. It's pretty cool. You can see that they really grow nice long roots. And these other trays that I have here, I've got 12 other trays, I believe, and you can even, this is day 5 of their growing process from the very beginning, and you can see that there's quite a few roots going nicely down there. You just see it, there's a lot of them. Now I have done this without adding weight, but I'm going to show you a difference here, because you can do it where you just put the where you just put this over. Well, you can see here, you can just do it where you just put that pan over the sprouts without adding the weight. but I do notice a little bit of difference in their growth. The germination, and I've done it here as well. I have 4 trays where I didn't put the weight on them, I just covered them. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this, but the germination is really quite good, quite comparable. But the growth, this tray had the 3 or 4 pounds of weight on it, about 3 pounds, and I think that the greens are, even though there's 7 different kinds in here, they're growing pretty close to the same size. The arugula is what grows the fastest, and I think that the cabbage grows the slowest, and I've estimated about 12 hours difference between the two, so it's not significant. But these without the weight just seem like they're not as even in height as these are with the weight. So if you want to skip that step, you can, and you'll still have success. But I think you get a little bit more yield going with the weight. While we're here, let me see if you can you see the little bit of white at the bottom of a lot of these stems? Let me see right here, you can maybe see, not sure, but I know that I can show it to you in another. Anyway, what that is because the first time I saw that, I thought, oh no, I've got mold, and it was quite a lot. And I can show it to you here. And it wasn't mold. What it was were, here we go. Spill my water if I'm not careful. Okay, so you can see all of that little white fuzziness. Those are root hairs, and they're on the stems, and you'll be able to see when yours are growing, you'll be able to see that they're just little fine hairs at the bottom of these stems near the soil. And then so this, I just took the weight off last night. You can see they've got height to them. Now they're probably, a lot of them are about 1/2 inch, and so once I take the weight off, I still leave them in a dark environment. And this process called blackout, this process will cause those stems to want to grow, and they'll actually just they'll grow taller than if you were to, at this stage, put it under light. And so at this point where the weight is taken off, but they're still covered up, is usually about a couple days, and they'll be, you're looking for them to get around 1 inch tall, roughly. 1 inch tall is a good measuring. This tray I just planted 2 nights ago, and so I think, yeah, so these are about like maybe 1/4 of an inch or so, roughly. They're germinated very nicely, and so it's time to remove this and just cover up with this. And I'll do that after I'm done here. This tray I planted last night, and so let's see what these seeds look like. They, if you can notice, there's a lot of little sprouts coming out of those seeds. So the germination process is underway, and this weight will be on here for about 2 days. I did think of another handy feature to this self-watering method that I wanted to tell you about, is that typically when people have just planted their seeds and they're in that germination process, they will spray them twice a day just to keep those seeds moist so that they will germinate. And that will be done for those first 4 days, twice a day, where you're spraying them with water to keep them moist so that they can grow. And then that's but with doing the self-watering, you don't have to spray them. There's no spraying at all to keep those seeds moist, just because the water is taken up through the wicking cord, keeps the soil moist, and therefore the seeds stay moist. And particularly when you have that weight on them, then they're still even held down into the moisture, more so than without the weight. The next step that I wanted to talk about is the water itself after the germination, where I've just initially I've put the 2 cups of tap water under the sprouts, in the green tray. The next stage, when I take this top off, once I take these off, when these have grown to about an inch in height, I take the foil off, and then I turn the light on, and I start feeding them from the bottom, from the green tray, with a nutrient solution. I have seen and read with several people that they recommend having a pH of 5.5 to 6 for microgreens, that they will just grow better that way at that pH. My well water is about a pH 7, and so I am using some pH down to lower the pH in the water. I don't really know if that's necessary, because I have done it quite a few times where I just left that out and I didn't really notice, I don't think, a difference. But I'm not ready to make a final decision on that. And besides, I've got still quite a bit to use, so I'll play around with that more in the future. It takes, for me to have a 5-gallon bucket of nutrient water, it takes me about 4 teaspoons of that pH down to bring it down to about a 6. I also use some kind of a nutrient solution, a liquid nutrient solution, and this is a common one. This is one that True Leaf sells, and you can get it on Amazon as well. And I will put, again, in my 5-gallon bucket, I will put 5 tablespoons of this. So the pH on Amazon, this is about $11. The Flora Grow is about $13. And again, I'll put links to those things in my handout. So I have a bucket here. I got this bucket from Tractor Supply, and you'll see that you want to get a bucket that is food grade. You don't want to use an old bucket that has building supply compounds in it. Can't think of what they do carry in these buckets, but I will put my water in there along with my nutrient stuff, and you can, of course, you can stir it without too much trouble gradually, but I did find this really cool 21-inch spoon, and so I can just put all that stuff in there and stir it up real nicely and very easily. So it's not necessary, it's probably just a luxury. It cost me, I think it was $10 on Amazon. I do cover up my mixture there, just because on the directions of these bottles it says not to store them in the light, and so I figure the same would hold true for my once I've mixed them up, is that I should keep the direct light out of them. And I do, let's see, I'm going to show you this little kit here. This is an inexpensive way to check the pH of your water. You can buy a little solution here of this testing indicator. You put a few drops of this in this little vial here along with your tap water. You shake it up, and then you got a little dropper there that you can put a few drops on this testing strip. I've got a whole lot of testing strips here. You put a few drops on here, and then you compare it with what color it turns after you've put the solution on there to determine, do I have a pH of 6 or 5 or 8? And it's not exact, but it gives you quite a good idea. I do find that when I have about 5 gallons of the solution, that I can do about 8 trays through the process once they're under the light. I use up about 5 gallons of this nutrient solution, and I like to use some kind of a watering can to put the solution in the green tray under the sprouting tray. This makes it easier not to spill water. It's just more efficient, faster, and less messy. Let's look at this shelving unit here. So I have a from Home Depot. It's probably like a 6-foot shelving unit. It's I think 2.5 feet deep, and let's see, it has five shelves to it, 4 feet wide, and it has 5 shelves to it, which I wanted more than that. So we purchased 2 of these units, and then used all but 2 of the shelves to make 1 unit. And so I actually have 6 growing shelves. I really have 7, but 6 of them the shelves are 10 inches apart, and then the very top one, which right now I just use it for storage, but the top one is 7 inches, but I'm sure I could use that if I wanted to as well. I cover the shelves with some kind of a waterproof material. This is just some vinyl that I'd gotten at a fabric store. That way, if I do spill some water, it doesn't go through to the next shelf. And also, you'll find that particularly if you're growing like buckwheat or sunflower seeds, which I'll talk about at another time, there's a lot of hulls, and they're falling off onto your shelf. So it's good to have some kind of a protection there. And plus you get, a little bit of dirt here or there that's gonna fall on your shelf. For the lights, I have, these are shop lights, just 4-foot LED shop lights. They're not grow lights. And the way that I attach them, since I am so mechanically inclined, is that I just attach them with a twisty. Works great. I like to have, this is pretty important, I think, a humidity gauge. You see the humidity, since it's winter time, it's quite low, 34%. I wouldn't want to be living in that low of an environment, a humidity environment, but the plants love it. And the temperature right now it's almost 69. A lot of times it's 65 down here, and that works fine. It just takes a little bit, maybe a couple days longer to grow, but you don't want it 60 degrees down in your growing area all the time. That I don't know how well they would do. I don't know how long it would take for them to actually grow. But with the humidity, that's very key, because if there's too much humidity down here, then I'll have mold. I I don't even remember when I last saw mold. It's just very seldom. And during the summertime, I run a dehumidifier so that I can keep the humidity to somewhere between 50 to 60%, and that is good way to protect against having mold. The other thing that's really important to avoid any mold growing, you can tell the difference between mold and all of those little root hairs that I showed you. Mold is more webby looking. It's also down at the bottom there by the soil, but it's very webby, and you can see pictures of it on the internet. But another important feature is to have air circulation. And so this is just this fan, I have it on low, and it's probably about 12 feet roughly from my growing unit. And you can just see, you can see a little bit of movement on the leaves from the air, but it's so it doesn't require much at all, but that's a helpful feature. I think that, so I can't remember if I said that those shop lights, I bought a set of 12 of them. They were $90 on Amazon, so I could do 6 shelves that way. And as far as how much time to have the light on, it's not exact. People that set their lights on timers will typically have the lights off about 7 hours out of the day, 7 out of the 24 hours. I don't use timers. I just turn them on and off when I so I don't necessarily have 7 hours in between. Sometimes it's 9 or 10 hours. Sometimes I leave them on for 24 hours because I've forgotten. Sometimes I forget to turn them on for way too many hours, but they still grow. So I don't, if I were to be gone a lot, I probably would try to set timers, but not in this case. All right, so the next steps are going to be about the harvesting and the storing and cleaning your trays. We are at our final steps, and I thought I would just mention, you might have noticed on some of my trays downstairs that I had numbers on them, so I thought that's not the way they came. That was when I was trying out different things, and I'd want to be able to say what seeds were in what tray, and so that, whether it was cabbage seeds or broccoli or whatever it was, so that's why I wrote on them. Another thing I wanted to show you is what you're looking for when it's time to harvest. Of course, you can harvest at any stage you like. You don't have to wait until this stage that they call the true leaf, but this is typically on the outside here. These are not actually called leaves, they're called cotyledons, and those are the first things that come once the sprout is started. But right in the middle there, you can see that little deal, that's actually a leaf. And when it gets a little bigger, it looks like a tiny little leaf. It's just amazing, the shape of it. But typically they will say to look for that true leaf, and then it's a good time to cut. And I do think that it's a good idea not to wait too much longer, because I think that even though there's nutrient water in there, I think the color can start to fade. It's telling me that that's the process. You don't want it to go further than that, because you're going to start probably losing nutrients. And if you've read about microgreens, I mean, it's been said by a number of sources that this is the most nutritious stage of the plant. And so you're getting, compared to a full-grown cabbage plant or broccoli plant, you're getting more concentrated nutrition at this stage. And so we want to keep that bright green color there. So I want to show you how to harvest, and I will typically use kitchen scissors. These are not regular scissors. I don't know what the finish is on these that makes them different than regular scissors, but there is something a little bit different because these will continue to cut really nicely even though I wash them, I've washed them many times. So so they're called kitchen scissors. They're not expensive. And that's what I usually use. I have used, and a lot of people will use, a really sharp knife, and that works nicely too. I do have, thanks to a good friend of mine, I have a super sharp knife, and it does work good. But most people don't have really sharp knives, and I find I have good control using scissors. So I just, I'm left-handed, so I can't, why don't we turn around this, we'll just switch places here. And I'm gonna take a grab there of a hunk, and I'm just going to keep taking a hold of pieces and just keep cutting away. Now you will probably pull up a little soil. See, I didn't that time, but I'm sure I will in here, just because it's hard to cut all of the stems. Some, you're cutting along and you don't quite get all the stems cut, and so you end up pulling one up from the dirt. But when that happens, I'll just pull that up so you can see. When that happens, you just cut it right off. And then I put it, so I'm putting it in a container here with a paper towel, because the paper towel helps to keep the moisture, pick up the moisture, and they will keep longer that way. And I'll just cut a few more here. So you can see it's pretty easy. And then if I want to, I'll do that, clean it up, do it a little bit better. But if I want to give some away, give some microgreens to somebody, I will use like a plastic bag here. This is just a gallon plastic bag, and I'll put a paper towel in there, and that's how I like to have them travel in a paper towel. And then I leave plenty of headspace there, along with a little bit of air in there, and that way they don't get smushed. So that's a great way to be able to give them to somebody, or if you don't have plastic containers, you can store them that way too. And then the last, and so of course you're storing these in the refrigerator, and they'll keep for several days. When you use that paper towel. So let's say this is full of the greens here. So I put this on the bottom, and then I'll take another one and tear it and put it right on top of them. And before I, then I put my lid on there. That's the way I store them in the fridge. And then I'll show you an easy way to get rid of the soil. So I have my tray here ready to empty. I make sure that there's no water in the bottom, and then I just turn it over, let it get knocked in there. And you're really wanting to just get as much of this out as you are able to, but it doesn't have to be wiped out clean. And then I've got my wicking cord here, and I'll do that to get off most of that dirt. And then what I find the easiest way to clean these is that I will just I'll take these and put them in a bowl with some water to get them rinsed off, but I'll stack my trays going this way, and I'll let them sit for a couple of days if it's not a problem to do that. That way they get totally dry. That dirt, that little bit of leftover dirt in there gets totally dry, and it's very easy to just use a brush. Like I'll use this brush, and when that dirt is dry, it's just really easy to brush them off. And the same way with your green tray, you can just brush off the dirt. And this is great to put in the compost. This dirt, this coconut soil, along with those seeds, like the seeds that didn't germinate, especially the mustard, it will germinate and you'll have mustard growing in your garden area. And it's got quite a bit of nutrition to it. So I really like this soil for composting, putting it out in the garden. Let's see. So with the cords, I wash them off with soapy water, and then I'll put them in a bowl with a little bit of bleach, just a cereal bowl with maybe a half a teaspoon of bleach in there, and let them soak in the bleach water for a few hours. Okay. So what I would, like I said, I'll usually let these dry so I can brush that dirt off, and then they can just be washed with soap and water, or even just water. It works just fine. I think that's all that I have to say about this process. So please ask me questions. Please tell me what wasn't clear enough, what you would like to understand more about. And I'm really happy, so thankful that you're wanting to grow microgreens. God bless you. God bless your efforts. And I'll be talking to you again. Bye-bye.